Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. We are the team representing Alfred University, and we did the North Carolina State University district use case. My name is Colin Schultz. I am a renewable energy engineering major.
My name is Alyssa Piota, and I'm a ceramic engineering major.
I'm Hans Goodnow, and I'm a renewable energy engineer.
My name is Alessio Ardita, and I'm also a renewable energy engineer.
All right. Just to kind of reiterate what Robin already said, North Carolina State University is a public research university, and they've adopted the Climate Action Plan to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. And there are a bunch of goals and benchmarks in between there to help reach them that goal. The use case is centered around their Centennial campus. So here are just some of their goals. They like to reduce peak demand and reduce energy use to overall save on utility costs. They'd like to diversify their energy sources, and they like through all this, they like to comply with the master plan, which you can see on the right. The last goal is to utilize a battery system to protect the following buildings during power outages for at least 3 hours and increase resiliency. These buildings are Engineering Building 2, Research 1, Toxicology, and Partners 3, and they all have their specified percentages. So using Aurora, here is just an overall aerial view of our proposed system. For all the systems, we used the SunPower X22 360 comm panels and the Atlas X 8.0 inverters. Our system is composed of 10 buildings, rooftop mounted, a carport, and a floating voltaic system on Lake Raleigh. Here's just some key features of the rooftop systems. We really wanted to take advantage of the flat pre-existing foundations that there already was, opposed to doing ground mounted arrays and having to rezone and cut down trees and all that. We made sure to mitigate any shading from trees and obstructions that were on the buildings and comply with the rooftop codes, making sure that they were the specified distance from the edge of the building and having the correct alleyways and stuff for fire codes. It is composed of 10 buildings, and overall for the buildings, it has a power rating of 1.79 megawatts. So the main features for the carport array, we wanted something that would have a high visibility for students and staff and to further adopting growing EV fleet. The carport array would protect vehicles from sun and the natural elements, and this has a power rating of 164.9 kilowatts. And this is our half-acre floating array on Lake Riley, which is about 75-acre lake. This takes advantage of the high irradiance and the low thermal temperature that the water provides for it. So it's kind of optimal conditions. It provides a unique experience for visitors and staff on the campus, and it integrates the new innovative renewable energy technology with nature. This has a power rating of 170.64 kilowatts, and due to its ability to move with water levels, it doesn't have to worry about the flood risk right there in the area. So this is just overall proposed system and specifications. Our system is 2.12 megawatts, has an annual production of 2.84 gigawatt hours, and is composed of 5,900 panels. For all of our arrays besides the carport array, they are placed in optimal 36-degree tilt and spaced 7 inches in the X direction and 40 inches between rows to provide room for walking and to mitigate any self-shading. We made sure that there was a minimum solar access of 83% and a minimum 75% TSRF.
So we used OpenDSS to run the distribution system impact analysis. I was went pretty well. We used steps as a 15 meters. For 1 year, we had to like divide the 800 and the information that we got from the website. But unfortunately, it seems as if we had that huge line is an overload that's happening directly going to the only node on what seems to be the information here.
I lost your audio.
Can you hear me?
Now I could hear you.
Okay, sorry about that.
I heard you had overloading the node and then dropped off.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we ran multiple studies. We ran like some circuit studies. We ran a couple of voltage tests to check if it was the lines or if it was the program or anything. And we got a lot of floating point overloads in the program, which either means that the lines are not connected or, as you will see in the next slide, they, if you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, those, yeah, here, this is the voltage, the currents, and the powers, and those are astronomical numbers. We were able to get around it because we discovered that.
Your audio just dropped again.
Um, Can you hear me one more time?
Now I can.
Okay, this is the last thing. Yeah, we switched the Y connection that was leaving nothing to stabilize the node, and we switched it to a WYE connection, and that distributed the load a little bit better. Yes.
For the battery storage, we used Nreal Reapp to generate the specifics for each building. We did the resiliency for the toxicology, partners 3, research 1, and the engineering 2 building, because those were the ones that need the battery storage for those. To calculate the load that was needed to be met in order to find the battery, we just used the resiliency percentage and multiply that by the peak load given from the data. And then the battery power was found by running 3 different times throughout a certain day and figuring out the battery size that would cover that load that needed to be met. And then to find the battery total, we just added them all up together, and same with the capacity. Next slide. And more on the battery storage. We advise the battery implementation so that we can increase the resiliency for those selected buildings. And it'll also, overall costs, it would be offset by the customer savings and the ability to use excess energy produced. And in the table to the right, you can see how much kilowatt hours is produced and the net present value of the battery system and how that would be helpful. And then these 2 graphs were for the toxicology building. The top graph is the yearly energy use for the building, and with the battery storage would help decrease the highs and lows for it. And the bottom graph just shows how the battery would help with the power outage.
All right, so with the development plan, there are certain things that we put consideration towards: the aesthetic appearance analysis, North Carolina State University master plan compliance, codes and permits, and community engagement strategy. Next slide, please. So for the aesthetic appearance analysis, we looked at the 3 different systems that we're using. The rooftop systems, minimum appearance really doesn't play a role with aesthetic appearance. The parking garage system, for one, it provides shade for the vehicles on top of the building. Also, it makes the building have a more multifunctional, aesthetic towards it. And the floating PV system really only takes up a fraction of the lake space, and it integrates nature with renewable energy, gives a nice futuristic look too. So next slide, please. So For codes and permits, for the city of Raleigh, their website's very clear cut. It has the steps and everything that you have to go through. Initially, it gives off 5 rules. Work must begin within 6 months of getting accepted. If your work is halted for 12 months, your permits expire. You need an administrative site plan, and it has to follow UDO, which is Unified Development Ordinance. Non-residential electrical permit through subcontractor is also required. And you're also required to provide a notice of lien agent, which is basically a notice that lets the city know that you're working on a project. So next slide, please. So also with non-residential PV systems, depending on what zone you are in, you are allowed to exceed the maximum height by 12 feet per UDO. You're supposed to provide PV system plan information. So what components are being used, what panels, inverters, if you're going to use combiners, and you have to provide your wiring schematics. And then also construction procedures like fall protection, clearances, and egress when roofs are publicly occupied. You also would need third-party approval to be submitted to the North Carolina Department of Insurance. So next slide. And then for community engagement, because it's important to let the community know what's going on and to gather support for the project, if you could let out common goals like carbon neutrality, reducing fossil fuels, renewables already kind of looked at in a positive light, so that's pretty easy. And then maybe if we could have presentations in town halls for the city of Raleigh, let them know what we're about, what's the project for. Also project meetings on campus for staff and students and faculty, let them know what's going on. And then also constant updates, sending out emails, letting you know about construction progress and whatnot. So with the development plan and the construction plan, we have 6 different phases. You can see we start off with site control, and then we do the permitting process and the project financing around the same time. And then after that, power offtake and the interconnection that happens at the same time too. And then we finish it with construction, and the construction will last about 4 months. So next slide, please.
So with the financial performance, the project IRR is the 8.09%. And that is what the university would be paying if they used a PPA. But if the university decided to pay upfront, they would be using the investor IRR of the 12.59%. And the graphs below go with the PPA and just show how the overall price of the utilities and how much the customers would save would increase for the savings and decrease for their price with the PPA. Next slide.
I think you're on mute, Colin.
Sorry. So here are just some of our goals and summaries in conclusion. It was to create an off-grid system to offset the energy demand and make the system more resilient and reliability. To help reach the climate action plan and also take into account the master plan for the next 10 years. Some recommendations that we had for future work was to come up with more designs to integrate PV generation into life on campus, kind of similar how we did to the carport system. To come up with a better solution to optimize battery selection and location, to further analyze the distribution impact as well with OpenDSS. And overall, some takeaways was a stronger comprehension of the PV system and projects. Teamwork and delegation is key, and overall financial performance will dictate system feasibility. And that is it. Thank you very much.